So the first one here, you can watch me eat like a gummy bear. Whoever watches the recording, if you ever do. Hope you're safe, healthy, have a great day. Now we're quiet, so everybody's surprised. Hey, Mike.
Hey, how's it going?
Doing good, doing good. How are you?
Not too bad.
That's good. Where are you located?
I'm in Minnesota. Yeah, I don't think we've met before, at least not directly.
I don't think so.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet
where
you
are
too.
You located?
Close to Vienna in Austria.
Okay.
So
nice.
Yeah, probably closer to Lucas.
I was gonna say, are you close to like Tim, or?
Yeah, Tim lives
Vienna,
like
right?
just in Vienna, so
Yeah.
that works out quite nice actually. Once we're back and allowed to travel and go to Vienna, so we'll see.
Yeah, hopefully sooner than later. I have no idea. We just live in strange times.
Indeed, indeed.
Hi, Mark.
So hey Mark. So you joined the ecosystem team now?
Yes. Yeah, I just switched over from configure. So kind of just dipping my toe into the water now of all these large sweeping foundational changes for the front end stuff, largely to deal with our tooling and our compile stack. So fun
That's
stuff.
so cool.
This is kind
That's
of
so super cool and exciting.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, sorry for the delay.
Hello.
Yeah, Mike, if you don't mind, I would be driving this a bit because I have like a little idea in my mind. At the end, you can tell us if it worked out well and if you like this one. I will obviously defer to you, Mike, if anything, or feel free to interrupt me at any time if I'm talking nonsense. And all the others that are here, also feel free to ask any questions, while I'm talking. Introduction. Mike doesn't need an introduction. We've just found out that Mike is the front-end grandpa as well. He's the person, the front-end engineer longest at GitLab consecutively. So like without interruption.
If you don't count Phil. Yeah. So Phil briefly left and came back, so we knocked him down to junior level.
So you're here joined by one of the elders of the internet. GitLab frontend. Cool. Together, we've been kind of forming the Frontend Foundation team for now. As you know, our hiring changed, so it's more or less Mike and I'm the manager. And so we thought, hey, let's do office hours because it gives us the opportunity to talk about long topics, like technical topics, in depth, which we haven't really done anymore. We want to, our work, we wanted to start our work with some other work that we've done before in the Webpack working group. So we just want to, jump on Webpack. And it's pretty funny because Webpack also has to do with our front-end performance. Like how do we split chunks? Do we do smart things? Do we do not so smart things with our Webpack config and the resulting bundles? So we thought it's a good topic for the first one. And there is no script. It's all freebie. We will see what happens, right? So do you have any
question before, if I could interrupt you? It looks like we have the waiting room enabled on this call. Should we just disable that and let people join, or? I've been admitting people as they pop up, but I just wonder if we want to.
Okay. Yeah, you can. I disabled the waiting room. I mean, we have the link with the password, so it should be fine. Cool. So, Roman actually has the first question. Or do you want to add anything, Mike, before we start?
No, I think you kind of covered it. It's yeah, I guess the mandate of at least this section of the ecosystem team is to deal with sweeping changes to the build tooling, and I suppose encompasses testing and many other things as well. But I guess early on, then we sort of decided we're going to focus on some long-standing Webpack issues. So this is important to discuss. And yeah, there's a lot of technical debt that we've accumulated over the past couple of years that just haven't gotten enough attention until now that we're dedicating a team to it. So hopefully we can really start making some profound improvements to both the developer experience and product performance and some other ancillary things. So I'm excited.
Cool. So first question comes from Roman.
Cool, yeah. Super happy that this team exists. Very excited. I'm not sure, like, it's kind of related to a little Webpack thing or so. So I'm interested in kind of like this global pack situation, because just I stumbled over it like recently and kind of started to look into it a little closer. And we have like our global package, which is kind of like large right now, right? And I stumbled over, we're kind of struggling, kind of slimming it down, because like it has like code in there that's like just used and have multiple pages, this kind of thing. Yeah, I think you call it like the main bundle, right?
Okay.
The main bundle, the big one.
Yeah.
And I thought, or so, like, does it make sense for us from an approach wise that we say, can we create something like a main light or so that says that's like really only has the libraries we care for, and to take care of the initial work, like it's saying we need to get probably the header bar work with this main light bundle without kind of like loading everything. So is this under consideration or whatever? And
yes.
I'll be quiet now.
So first things first, I'm just going, I don't know, I shared over my screen. My screen is rather large. I hope this is fine with all of you, that you actually can see something. I want to give some, I'm just going to, I worked over this on the weekend. I didn't work on the weekend, never work on the weekend. But I just wanted to give some perspective for the people who might not know it. So the thing Roman is talking about, we're loading JavaScript on every page. That's our main bundle. It's our main entry point, and it's just loaded on every page. And right now there's a lot of stuff loaded in there. If we actually, search in the JavaScript, there is like, it's called main.js, right? And it like loads jQuery, Webpack stuff like polyfills, a lot of the things that are, like tooltips, lazy image loading, all these things that you might kind of need on every page, maybe not everything that's in here. And this bundle right now gets concatenated with like all of the libraries that we use on every page, or that we use a lot. The threshold that we actually have is like you need to use it on 90% of the pages, and then it's thrown in here as well. So for example, how you call it? So for example, all of view and so on is in there. So in case you might not know, we have this, we have actually a good Webpack bundle analysis, and I hope it's documented. Otherwise, we should document it. And just going to show you.
It is. I'm putting the link into the chat, but that's where it's published from master.
Cool. Yeah, I think we had some problems in the past with this publishing because of our pipelines that they, don't publish too often. But that looks rather good right now. Let's see if this thing is
fairly up to date. Does it say the compiled time somewhere in it? That might indicate how old it is, but
I mean, we just removed underscore to yesterday. So if you search for underscore, yeah, it's not there. So it's fairly recent. Otherwise, you can find it by looking for a front-end maintainer into a merge request that they have merged. So I don't know if Natalia's build is 1 hour ago. It looks good. Then you can go into the compile assets with the dots, and then it's there as a report. Webpack report, and it's the same HTML file that will be pushed. We just had some problems in the past because our pipelines now with all the docs exceptions and so on, they didn't publish like to pages regularly. So the stuff that you might find here might be outdated. But in order to illustrate the point, it's pretty easy to see. So how does Webpack work for us? We have different entry points in Webpack that are tied to the Rails routes. So this is, for example, where you can see, hey, pages, projects, merge request show. So this is the stuff that will be loaded on the show page of a merge request. So the normal, if you go to any merge request really, and then you can see that some of these chunks, so-called common chunks, here you can see comments, page IDE, page snippets edit new. So this is like code that's shared between page snippets edit, the IDE, and so on. And you can see that Webpack bundles these things together. So if you, for example, go to a snippets show page, it will load the snippets show page thing, it will load the comment stuff, and it will load the main bundle. So right now it will load a lot of JavaScript because the main bundle is like 900 kilobyte gzipped or 7 megabytes raw. So it's a lot of JavaScript, and it will load the additional stuff. So far, so good.
Which is crazy because we opened up issues about main.js blowing up out of proportion back when it was 700 kilobytes, not 7 megabytes.
Yeah.
So this has really grown out of control for some time now. Yes.
So, and here are big topics that we want to tackle that you can see right here. I don't know if these have issues. So maybe if somebody could write in the document while I'm talking so that we can make sure that we have issues afterwards would be amazing. So let's dive into here and just have a look what's actually in the main bundle. So you can see like everything that's in here is obviously node modules. So this is dependencies that we're loading. Everything else is what we're responsible for. So one of the things we're responsible for is we have fallback for emojis, and we have like a big JSON file that's generated that has like fallbacks for all the emojis to load actual pictures if your system doesn't support emojis. And this is one that has been moved out, but there was like a little bug with it. So it has been moved back in because, it led to emojis not properly loaded, but this is a big one. It's just like 300 kilobyte of something that you might not need probably don't need if you have a modern system. You can see a lot of stuff that makes sense. We have like view in there. We have like, if we actually, and let me just maybe do it like this. So if we search for view, and now I just need to zoom out and find the main bundle again. Where is it? Main bundle, you're large, where are you? Yeah, oh, it got a different color. This is lovely. You can see we have view in there. We have Bootstrap view in there, which is now highlighted. We have Vuex there. We have Vue Apollo in there. It kind of makes sense, even though you could argue, hey, maybe Vue Apollo doesn't make sense load on every page. But, we get the idea. And there we actually can see where we have like a lot of tech debt as well, right? Because we're loading jQuery. We're still using jQuery in a lot of places. So long-term goals should be getting rid of jQuery, should be getting rid of Bootstrap's JS, right? One of the things that we just accomplished last night, big props to the people who worked on it, especially Scott and Laura, and I think Jose, getting rid of underscore in the favor of Lodash, because Lodash can be properly tree shaked. So we actually just add the stuff that we really use here, right? And so we got rid of 50 kilobytes. It's not a lot of compared to the other stuff here in the main bundle. Oh God, the colors that they change all the time. And apparently GPU rendering is not doing too well with a zoom share. My laptop is flying away. Okay, cool. We can see that's in there. It makes sense. What doesn't make sense is like we load eCharts, our charting library, on every page, even though we don't use it on every page. We load, we have like.
Sorry to interrupt there, Lucas. I think maybe if we've got someone on the call from monitoring team who can speak to this, but I think we load e-charts on every page as well as the monitoring. There's a monitoring chunk there. If you paste a link to a monitoring dashboard chart anywhere in GitLab, I think, or any markdown area, then that chart gets rendered inline. That's why we include e-charts in the monitoring dashboard. And that's also why if you use Vue DevTools, you'll see the monitoring dashboard Vuex store listed in the DevTools there. So one, it's been on my mind for a while. Load that on demand.
Yes, exactly. Good point. And we probably should employ a similar technique to what we're doing with, for example, Mermaid, the Mermaid charts, or what we're doing with like these viewers here. You can see we have like a pretty big dependency. If you ever want to render a balsamic file, like no one wants to, or if you want to render PDFs, we have like these, we have these separate chunks that are just loaded if you actually view like such a page, right? So yeah, great call out. And it's exactly the stuff that we want to talk about, that we want to tackle, where we need issues for, that, the Frontend Foundation team could do, or, with instructions, other people could be doing on the team as well. Another big culprit that we've just introduced recently is we have a Indy Ide folder. So if we actually look into our IDE, let's find the IDE utils. There's a utils.js, which loads all the languages Monaco supports, does some mapping on the languages that Monaco supports, because we use that to be smart and say, hey, this file is like a text file, because Monaco knows, right? We just rely on the little company called Microsoft here and the open source community behind it, that we know and render icons and stuff based on Monaco. And this actually leads, to us loading Monaco on the merge request page, because unfortunately Monaco cannot be tree shaked. So if you require something, and this is like two or three layers of indirection by just requiring these utils, you suddenly load up 7 megabytes into the merge request page. So if you go to any merge request page right now, you load 15 megabytes of JavaScript, right? And one of the things that I have been working on, because it was like a little pet peeve, is we have this Webpack memory metrics. And this is actually to track like the development memory that we need to take when developing with Webpack, how much memory of your RAM, of your computer memory it takes when running Webpack. And I've wrote like scripts to analyze the bundle sizes and so on, in order to be able, and would do it continuously. We would do it continuously in a CI job that creates like artifacts that save the bundle size for each entry point and for the main chunk. And then we can write a danger job, which goes in and says, hey, your merge request just bloated, this entry bundle by 2 megabytes, 200 kilobytes, whatever. And, or, your merge request made the situation like a lot better. And so, because right now a lot of these mishaps probably also happen because you don't have any visibility into it. Maintainers don't have any visibility into it. So making like these changes visible over time, and while you work on these things, definitely makes sense, right? Yeah. Sorry for, taking up so much time and talking. I could talk about the challenges here as well, because currently the stats JSON is 530 megabytes. So parsing that and doing something more meaningful out of it was a bit challenging and interesting, which we also can improve upon. There's great stuff that's going to come here. So this is just like an entry point for discussion. We can go a bit more into how chunk splitting actually works if you want to. There are a few things that have changed where we have written it down as a keyword earlier, Mike and I, the HTTP2 server push, because we now utilize HTTP2. So even one optimization that we could do that would be cheap without any big thing would be, hey, if we maybe refactor things, even if it's the same JavaScript, if we maybe just split it into more chunks, we could make use of HTTP2 loading at parallel. We noted a lot of things that we can load asynchronously, to just improve this situation. So, and I will stop talking now and give other people room to ask questions or these kind of things.
I'd say one quick thing, and I'll post the link in the chat here, but I created a merge request just last night for this Monaco vendor, the problem where we have marketing loaded separately in 4 separate chunks. This is a thing that Webpack purportedly is supposed to be able to notice and account for on its own, and it should automatically take that and put it into one common chunk, because this is, you know, multi-megabyte addition to several chunks that could be put into one cacheable chunk. But for whatever reason, because we have so many entry points at GitLab, I think it's not the way they anticipated people using the split chunks plugin. It does not notice these things automatically. So in order to fix this, you can look at the changes that I did on this particular MR, but it's similar to what I had to do with the main chunk. You have to massage the configuration to basically tell it to notice the Monaco dependency and create its own chunk for it, because unfortunately it's not doing that on its own. I would like to sometime see if we can contribute a fix upstream to Webpack itself that will just make split chunks plugin smarter, so that we don't have to do this manual massaging of our configuration anytime we add a large dependency that for whatever reason doesn't get thrown into a commons chunk currently. Yeah, it's just one other thing that's on my mind.
Yeah, so this split chunks, here you can see this the main bundle, right? Where what we mentioned before is like, hey, all the stuff that ends up in here, priority is like the higher, right now, for example, if Monaco would actually end up in the main chunk, it still would end up in the main chunk. So maybe we should talk about the priority, but priority is just like, how important is this main chunk?
You can see from the configuration there that min chunks is set to entries count times 0.9, which means something would have to be in 90% of all the entry points before it ends up in the main chunk. So that shouldn't happen with Monaco, but we could make a mistake and import it somewhere with similar to what happened already, where we use some utility function in Monaco and don't realize that it's pulling in the whole library. And that's where we need to have some sort of linters or a danger thing that screams at us when that happens, so that we don't merge it without taking note of what we're doing to our bundle sizes. Yeah.
And similar, this, for example, would be a point where we could go in and start grouping like other dependencies and these kind of things. But yeah, probably the question is like, how much would this help if we still load it on every page, like the thing that Mark mentioned with the monitoring bundle, right? What's actually here? Utils come in. Daytime utils. Graph. So multiple GraphQL stuff.
Is there, sorry, finish your thought, Lucas.
No, I'm just rambling a bit.
I was going to say, do you have anything in mind about doing like an A/B test on different chunking strategies? So say, serve up how we currently chunk things up to 90% of users, and then serve different chunks to the remaining 10%.
That's actually a really good point, and this is what the little script here is doing, right? Like this gives you the average size, the size of the main bundle, and this is the average size of a page without the main bundle. So if you would compare these, this would definitely, and maybe we have to look at the statistics, because it could be like, here you actually can see probably when we did this Monaco mistake, because apparently we had a jump like on average increasing by 50, 60, how much is this? 50 kilobytes. So this is probably something where we did this mistake and something grew out of proportion like dramatically. And this is where these tools, once we write them, let me just open up here, can help us definitely to do this A/B testing, right? And and I've deleted it. No, I've deleted it. So you're going to see some live coding in a second. I've actually already written a script which compares two arbitrary analysis of the bundles and gives you groups you the stuff after, there's like a threshold of 1 kilobyte, which is really low. But if something grows at least 1% or 1 kilobyte, it would be counted as significant change, grow or shrinking. And this is what we would visualize on the Danger plugin. So doing these A/B tests in merge request would definitely be helpful. Right now, analyzing this data would be a lot of manual work. So this is why I think having this Danger thing would be very, very helpful.
So that's A/B testing at the sort of merge request stage. I'm talking more about in deployment stage, because as in if we measure page load performance, which we already do, I guess, but we switch out the sort of chunking strategy, we can see how that really affects things, because it's not just about downloading scripts, about executing them as well. So if we I think you know what I mean.
That's actually a good call out. It's a good question. I wonder if we theoretically could compile Webpack into different, at least for GitLab.com, Omnibus, they would scream at us if we include our JavaScript twice, right? And then serve it, makes no sense, this A/B testing for on-premise. But I think theoretically, I don't know exactly how it works. Remind me, Mike. As far as I understand it, we have like a manifest JSON, and this manifest JSON is used to deliver the right assets for the right pages, right? And so theoretically,
the manifest is consumed by Rails, and Rails uses basically the naming of the entry points to determine which pages they need to be loaded on. So we can easily set it up so that Nginx or whatever server is doing the HTTP2 implementation can consume that as well, and have that awareness of what chunks need to go with what pages.
So theoretically, we could deliver two versions and switch them out with a feature flag on the Rails side, right? Yeah,
we could do that as well. Just I wonder. I got to look at the Rails Webpack implementation and see, because I think it caches the manifest in certain ways. I know it's doable. I just wonder if it's as simple as a simple like toggle to tell it, which manifest to load, or if it's more complicated than that. But you can look into it. But the thing about this is we're kind of just, we'd be checking different ways of splitting up the chunks. It would still be the same amount of code being parsed and executed on a given page. And I feel like that's where a lot of our performance gains could come from. Splitting up the chunks might improve network performance, but I don't think it'll actually improve like the execution performance and the parsing in the browser. And that's where we should really, I think, focus on reducing a lot of the code through, on-demand code splitting, async chunks being implemented. We don't really use a lot of async loading, certainly not where it's most consequential. And I think there's a lot of low-hanging fruit to be found in the main bundle there. Can we count on right now that everybody using GitLab is basically using an HTTP2 capable browser?
I mean, we're dropping IE 11 in September, which probably makes a lot of stuff easier, right? So yeah, I don't know. Is IE 11 actually HTTP2 compatible?
I don't know. That's a good question. If it is, then I'd say we definitely can assume that.
Apparently, IE 11 has partial support for HTTP2, but everything else has full support, it seems, in terms of last two versions.
Because I think with HTTP2, I could be wrong, but I believe that before this, there was an kind of a bottleneck of the number of simultaneous requests that you could have for like front-end assets when you initially load the page. I believe that is somewhat lifted when you can count on using HTTP2 because it can request multiple things at the same time. The Webpack by default right now tries to limit the number of chunks per entry point to 4. Actually, I think it's normally 3, but we've increased it to 4 in our config. But we could make that much higher if we can count on the ability to load them simultaneously. And perhaps that would improve the network performance. That'd be worth fiddling with if we're doing an A/B test.
Actually, so that reminded me, the reason I brought that up in the first place is that I remember reading that the benefits of HTTP2 are lost as soon as you get a connection that is less reliable. Say, for instance, you're going from China to the US or something like that. Then the benefits of HTTP2 actually are reversed, and you get a really bad experience. That's what I've read. So if we chunk too much, we might be preferentially, we might be making those with poorer connections more disadvantaged, possibly.
That remembers
like CloudFront, right? Wouldn't that alleviate some of the, connecting from China to a server in the US kind of situation less common? Yeah, but yeah, we have to consider the lowest common denominator, which might be somebody using an Android phone in India or something with a poor, like a 3G connection or something. We want to make it a decent experience for them as well. So I'm not sure.
To be honest, like HTTP2 or not, I think what we all can agree on, getting rid of unnecessary stuff will help in any case, right? Like, and yes. And I mean, it's also one thing, that Mike and I were discussing earlier, like about caching strategy, for example, like GitLab UI is in the main chunk. So you will never have a release with like, where you can cache over one release. Like, let's say we're not updating Vue. So we could theoretically cache Vue, but on the other hand, we just, like on .com, we update like once or maybe twice a week. On premise, people update once a month. So even if you cache like those 2.59 megabytes, right, the stuff doesn't change that often, right? But if once we move more to a CD model, it might even be meaningful to, even if the connections are worse, if you have like users who are using, GitLab regularly, it might still be useful to put some stuff in other chunks in order to be able to cache them longer or something like that. Especially stuff like jQuery, which we never update or something like that, right? But yeah, it's always a trade-off. And I asked yesterday, and apparently we have it. We have theoretically also, and because yesterday it just came. I had the idea, I was like, hey, why don't we use GitLabbers? GitLabbers are distributed. They are the best testers for performance tests. So if we, with their connection, provide them with like certain scripts that they could execute in order for us to collect data, how GitLab actually performs around the globe, would be pretty cool. Because if we just use like what is our provider right now that we use, the SiteSpeed. If we use SiteSpeed that runs from one data center, with a good connection to GitLab that runs in another data center, it might not give you real life results, right? Like you mentioned, Mark, that, I mean, you had the experience in the past that probably like loading stuff via VPN and so on is pretty annoying. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, a
And to that end, as far as trying to make things cacheable long-term, I don't know if that's really possible by massaging the Webpack config itself, because there's so many little things that will change that that digest hash in the main JS chunk that aren't even related to the contents of the chunk. It could be references to another chunk that you know is part of the same runtime that you know, any little, if one bit changes in that file, the digest will change. The only way I think to really isolate it and make it long-term cacheable would be to use like the DLL plugin for some dependencies that we know don't change often. Yeah. And that could encompass, you know, things like the emoji digests. Obviously, I don't think they've changed in probably years. I don't know how many times we've updated that. The jQuery, you know, I don't know how often we update eCharts, though eCharts should be async anyway. And I'm not sure how frequently we update Vue, but maybe we have a new policy on the cadence of when we update some of these dependencies with a mind for, you know, maintaining cacheability too.
I mean, to be perfectly honest with the emojis, sorry for getting sidetracked. I was just, you know, it's the end of my working day. I just want to get a quick rant in. It's like, certain competitors don't use all of the emojis. And I think it's pretty smart because on a database side, you don't need to store as much, right? And we have all the emojis, which now leads to problems that other people don't have, right? Like, because emojis probably have a faster update cycle than Vue. And so you would need to update like the stuff. If you still want to support all the emojis, you still need to update it. And you now suddenly start also, because there are some weird emojis or emojis that are potentially misused or whatever, you might even end up in a situation like, hey, could we please remove the middle finger emoji because it's not nice? And so suddenly you not only become the gatekeepers of a great tool, you also become, you know, the gatekeeper of which emojis are okay and which are not. Sorry for the rant. Emojis are just a pain. Yeah. I see Roman has a question. Would it make sense? MR screams if the Webpack bundles suddenly grew by X. Yes, exactly. That's the intent. Is there a canonical set of pages we can test benchmark with chunking strategies? I think the best canonical pages we would have are the ones that we use for site speed. So site speed, is Andre still on the call? Yeah. Andre, do you maybe want to say a few words about the site speed that we currently have?
I can talk about what we're doing. Yeah, so basically the site speed goal is just to keep the performance periodically checked. So it doesn't check particularly, the site speed tool does allow you to check once the feature hits production. This section of the handbook just captures the speed index, I think, and just see if we got it worse or better. I don't know what you're expecting me to cover though, IB in particular.
So site speed, we run it like regularly, I think in the Google Cloud, right? And then it uploads the stuff to Grafana, I assume. And yep. So theoretically, if we were, because Sarah is asking about a canonical set of pages, so we could theoretically create like a few examples. I think we have created test environments or like large merge requests or something like that in the past. And we could, for example, put them on staging. And if we would do A/B testing or these kind of things, we could configure site speed in a way that it hits both with A and B, for example, and or we can enable the feature flag and run speeds and compare them, right? And and the site speed, is the repo actually linked here?
If you click on the little speedometer, you can go to the dashboards if that's what you're asking.
No, I'm asking about the repo.
I don't think it's there.
That would be a good link for the page, right? Like,
okay. But anyway, so I think the one of the team members that has more familiarity with it is either Tim or Jose. I think he worked on it a long time ago. But we can totally tweak it. We can tweak the URLs that are currently seen, but the site speed is currently just checking production, not checking any other parts. We do have a job for review performance built by the quality team, I think, that checks the performance of the merge request. That's probably a better place to start. So every merge request has a job review per performance, if I remember correctly.
Oh, wow. This is new. This is nice. Oh, which one is it?
It is the one below.
Yeah, it's this one. Oh, wow. Apparently, they're even doing it for staging. 2 months ago, 5 days ago. Okay, so yeah, description on how to run it. Maybe this is something where we need to consolidate efforts, but this is the repo which we currently use. Just linking it here, and apparently this one would be interesting to know the differences and so on. This is the one that we use for the handbook and for continuous monitoring. But I don't know if there's anyone, if you have a setup that suddenly pings people if something gets worse, or if this, it's similar to the Webpack bundle, right? If the stuff is there, but nobody looks at it, it's nice that it's there, but you need alerts around these kind of things. And but it's cool that we already have it because it makes it easier to test, for example, do this A/B testing, right? Yeah. And hopefully we're in a good spot, I don't know, in a few months down the road, that we actually can start digging into the performance of the code, right? Because all what we're talking about is just performance of loading stuff and not loading unnecessary stuff. But there's probably also how do we write our code? Especially on high complex pages like the merge request, right? With all the divs and all these kind of things that's rendering a lot of lines, a lot of data, a lot of issue discussions, and these kind of things that are very complex and very big, potentially large. So because this is where also performance, after the stuff is loaded, how performant is our code. Yeah. Sorry,
so
I'm rambling.
IP. No, I want to say one thing, one of the things we noticed with the review performance job is that it's tough to get a consistent way to measure performance when you're running within a reviews app. But if you're looking at sizes of bundles, that's a more objective way to compare, right?
Yes.
If you're looking at timings, then if you run it on two different reviewers apps, the timing might be different, even though nothing changed. But the sizes of the bundles are much more objective. So you might want to consider reaching out to quality, or just writing another job on the CI that compares the bundles.
Yeah, and this is here I'm comparing two bundles. This is the code that I've not written on the weekend. And you can see compares two points in time, and you can see a significant shrink. So this is the page that shrunk the most, loading. It's not considering the main bundle, because, the main bundle, just gets we know that we need to fix the main bundle. This is just, to see, okay, what happens on the merge request index page. And apparently we did something between these two timestamps, and it shrinked significantly. And if you look on the significant growth, you actually can see, this is what happened, what this big bump in the average meant. It's hey, we had a page that was 400 kilobytes before, and now it's 6 megabytes, right? So stuff like that. And if and this is a high percentage. So if we scream at you once something grows more than 1%, or 4% or 2%, whatever, obviously that's also can be a downside, because you still could grow over time. Just having this thing scream at you in data doesn't mean that you shouldn't monitor these kind of things. but, making this data a bit more accessible and, maybe even giving all of the sections and groups the responsibility. Hey, look at your pages and do you even realize how much code you've written? Or, even if you just refactor some code, delete some code and have as a nice side effect, see how much of an impact it actually had. I think would be a pretty cool thing, because then once you start deleting code, hey, even if you have a 400 kilobyte page and just remove 20 kilobytes, that's substantial. That's less, always brings you a few milliseconds, and once you remove a few milliseconds a lot of times, it ends up being a quite nice thing. Nice. Oh, sorry, English. I stop rambling now. Yep. Cool. Are there any more questions regarding Webpack bundles, chunks? We haven't touched on Webpack memory consumption. This is usually a topic that's more interesting to the backend engineers because they don't want to run the Webpack dev server. Otherwise, we maybe could do a little retro of this first meeting and see how we could iterate on it in the future.
Has there been any work yet on, say, Webpack Dev Server only building the chunks for the page you're viewing?
No, not like that. We do have in the very near future 2 new dev server options, one that will compile once and not retain everything in memory. So basically it just runs Webpack and listens for changes on the front end assets and then runs Webpack again from scratch, which will reduce the memory footprint a lot for people that don't frequently touch the front end code. As well as sort of an intermediate option between what we currently do, where we retain everything in memory and nothing, is exporting all of our large dependencies into a DLL and using the DLL plugin in development, which seems to reduce the memory footprint a bit as well, but still allows us to do, hot module replacement and other niceties for, hacking on code in the front end. Those should both come in very soon. The MR was pretty much ready to go a couple weeks ago, but we are doing a minor refactoring right now, and then it should get in soon, and then just be part of the GDK, the GDK.YAML file as to which option you use. But as far as compiling the code only for the page that you are on, that's fairly complicated, because the way Webpack works right now is it needs to look at kind of the entirety of the code base to know how to split the chunks in the most efficient. It's not the most efficient, but close to an efficient way, so that it's not retaining a lot of duplicate code in memory and serving up code in duplicate entry points. So it can't really take a single page in isolation, or it could, but we would have to, we'd have to do a lot of work to make it work that way. I was at a conference back in August, the JS Conf, where somebody from Etsy was talking about the setup that they have, which kind of splits up their Webpack compile process into like zones. So they have like this large sweeping section of the code base is governed by one particular Webpack compile process, and another section is, another one. And, unfortunately they can't share commons chunks between them, but they found that they got like a good balance of productivity to practicality as far as the way that the compile process worked, and allowed people to have a manageable memory footprint when developing. So it might be something worth looking into. I bookmarked it and I can't remember the name of the tool they developed, but I think they open sourced it. So that's an option that we could explore.
I mean, I wonder, as a lot of front-end engineers are basically working in their stages, if it theoretically you create like a list of stuff that you want to compile, right? Like, hey,
yeah.
I just care about this code. And then if you go on another page, we just give you a banner. Hey, you haven't configured this code to compile, so that you're, oh yeah, I'm reviewing a merge request. I'm going to add it to that list. I don't know if that makes sense at some point, or if it can be done automatically in a good way. I mean,
that's a really, I think, elegant way to do it. Perhaps we can, we basically just have a redundant, statically compiled Webpack, set of assets with its own manifest file, and then one that's dynamic that only gets triggered on certain pages or something like that. That would be a way to do it. We really have to educate people that are using it this way, so that they understand when they're leaving the zone of, things that will be responsive to saving changes in their editor versus the pages that aren't. But yeah, maybe putting a big banner up there that says like, caution, this is not being, I don't know.
Or maybe because you mentioned the static analysis, I mean, these Webpack statistic files contain a lot of stuff. I wonder if you could compile once, save out a file that basically has the static mapping of stuff, and then you kind of know, what you need for a certain page, and then you do a per route compilation or something. I don't know. Or if you, it's really tricky. Tricky stuff, and probably can also, it has something that we need to think out well and test well, because it definitely can lead to frustration if it's the default. I mean, otherwise, like you have seen from the memory thing though, it will just get worse, right? Over time.
This is a problem that we can't ignore forever. We have all got MacBooks with like 16 gigabytes of memory, but everything, it's going to be exhausted eventually, not just for the eco or the whatever team. I'm drawing a blank.
Geo team.
Geo team. Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. I also get exhausted every day, so maybe I also need on demand. Anyway, I think we're at time when it comes to the meeting slot. Do you have any feedback on this meeting that you want to give right away? If not, I'm going to paste the link to the issue that, because we want to document the thing in the handbook, which we didn't do. If you have feedback, feel free to reach out to me or Mike. Let's see how we're going to do it in future formats. We definitely want to have this as regular office hours. So if you want to bring topics to the table, it's like, hey, I heard about this cool thing. Why not TypeScript? I don't know. It doesn't have to be Mike or I who have to be leading this meeting. So if you have something that you want to talk about, front-end related, Frontend Foundation office hours, we give frame for nice technical discussions and front-end weirdness. I've
really enjoyed it, and I can't wait for the next one.
Oh,
same here. Even though I arrived in the second half, it was definitely useful to hear the topics that are being discussed. So thank you.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you. And have a good one, everyone, and see you at Virtual Contribute.
Bye, everyone.